Wish TV is proud to honor teachers in Central Indiana
She is an inspiration to all of us.
He's always smiling.
who go above and beyond,
He's done so many things for so many people.
He's inspirational.
making a difference,
He's always taught me to believe in myself and never get down on myself.
Everybody's biggest cheerleader.
and deserving of recognition for their outstanding efforts in
I
education.
love the people that I work with, and to know that I've made an impact on somebody's life, it is truly a great honor.
It's an honor. I love what I do, and the kids are the ones who make it work. I'm like just so taken aback because I love them so much. The fact that, they love me just as much just means a lot. Sorry, you're going to have to cut that part out.
And you are our winner.
Oh, thank you so much.
From Wish TV and the All Indiana Podcast Network, this is the Golden Apple Awards podcast, sponsored by Bailey & Wood Mortgage Lender.
Welcome to the Golden Apple Podcast. We're extending the conversation after a really fun March Golden Apple surprise. This month's winner is an AP literature teacher at North Central High School in Indianapolis. Her name is Jocelyn Sisson. Her students admire and respect her, while she demands the best out of everyone she teaches. Her fun and an enormous personality, it really shines through and helps get students to truly become spectacular writers. Miss Sisson is also known for yelping. That's yell helping, a term her students have coined, which is sort of what she did when we surprised her. And speaking of the Golden Apple surprise, it came and went so fast. So I brought Mrs. Sisson back here on the podcast.
Hi, I'm Bailey of Bailey Wood Mortgage Lender. Our founder and my dad, Mike Wood, understands the importance of family, which is why with our fast turn times, you can focus on your family and enjoying your new home. Bailey Wood has donated over $500,000 to local charities, schools, and our hometown heroes. When you use Bailey Wood, you're partnering with a local family and business that cares about your community.
Hey, Jocelyn, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today? How's it been
Doing
with us?
well. Thank you for making me a 1 or 2 day celebrity.
Well, you deserve it all. What was the response? What's it been like the last few days?
So I have zero social media, interestingly enough, but I have received emails from past students. My daughters are online and, their friends who knew me and had classes with me are responding. And so I really like people from, living in Alaska are writing whenever I write, I think about you. And so it's been incredibly gratifying and flattering.
Oh, good. Well, I'm so glad and you deserve it. But in the moment and all the big chaos of it all, we didn't really get to talk to you all that much and get to learn about you. Your husband did kind of fill me in a little bit on how you got started with teaching, but I'd love to hear it from you. What's your story? How did you get into all of this?
Right. So it was very interesting for me to hear, you're talking and then there are two hosts and she's like, has she always wanted to be a teacher? Which I think is really the classic story, right? Oh, my mother was a teacher. So there is no one in my family who's a teacher. They are lawyers and doctors and business people. And it is true, when I was at Harvard getting my master's in, believe it or not, the study of religion, not education, I would drive by this huge high school, and that was when they had smoking, right? So they were smoking, like that gives you a hint how old I am. And I was like, oh, wow, maybe I could teach. And so I prolonged my degree and did a year student teaching and went through the Harvard Ed School and got a certificate to teach. So it really was not, it was not on my agenda. I think you have to have teachers to think about teaching.
And for me, at least, same boat. I don't have any teachers in my family, but it from the outside perspective, it's a big responsibility. You've got a lot of young lives in your hands and you're shaping our future generations. You had a different career first.
Yes.
So I'm interested to hear, what was that like, being on the other side, and then your perspective now being a teacher, you kind of know both worlds.
So could really talk to you about the privatization of education, but I will spare you and your listeners. But so I did work because, right, that's what my parents did. So I, first of all, let me back up. I went to college at a time when you just sort of got educated and you didn't necessarily think about what you were going to do. So that was in the late 70s. I graduated from Brown in 79. And so I kind of fell into business, and my last job was to run the businesses on Tufts University that exist on 3 campuses. So they have a med school downtown, an undergraduate institution in Medford, Massachusetts, and then a vet school. And I was really middle management. And I think that, not to do too much TMI, I was, in a lot of turmoil. I wasn't being satisfied. I was in a position financially where I could just leave my job and pursue something that I was interested in, which is like, who can really do that? Mm-hmm. So I have a master's in the study of religion. So, it is interesting to see a business model imposed on public democratic institutions. And so, which I obviously do not agree with. I don't think that schools can be run for profit. I mean, they are the last bastion of democracy. We have to accept everybody. We cannot turn you away. We cannot ask you where you came from. If you have a Washington Township address, you're in. And so I just think it's a very, very different perspective. And people who legislate education and have no experience with it have no experience with it. It really should not be legislating. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'm fiercely a fierce advocate for public education.
I think you exhibit the best that there is. 20 years at this school alone, but then 32 years teaching, right?
Yes, I know. I've been teaching for 32 years.
It's amazing. So a lot's changed over the course of 32 years. What's changed? What's the same?
So, I have often thought about that. So first of all, I think when I began, there were very few pressures on teachers, right? So you showed up, and then you left. Now to sort of allude to what you said earlier, I really take it very seriously, my responsibility to educate students. And I have taught the highest and the lowest. So, I have sort of settled into being an AP teacher, but I taught credit recovery in this building, which is like the bottom third. And, it's not that easy teaching kids who have no experience with school or for whom school is difficult and frustrating. So I think the expectations for teachers have changed. You really could walk in and leave. I think that when I started here, I moved to Indiana 22 years ago, we began the unfunded mandate issue. So public schools were left to kind of fund mandates by the state that they didn't have money for. So HB 1134 was kind of speaking to that, but that did not get passed. I would also say, sorry, students, but because of the advent of screens, kids have changed, right? Mm-hmm. They're not less able, they're not less smart, but they're less able. That things take more time because they're on screens and flipping, and you have to actually stop and read a text, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's been a big difference. So that's changed my teaching, right?
Plus, I'm sure the pandemic was a part of
that was an interesting blurb. I was still doing it, I was singing to them. It's funny, I'm back to school night this year. Parents were like, oh, I remember you singing to my students on Friday mornings. And I was like, so yeah, that was really, we know that's been really hard. I was very lucky because I did have advanced students who typically come from privileged backgrounds, and they were there and their cameras were on. My students were really awesome last year. I was very lucky, I feel.
I do think often about, I have a 3-year-old and I can't imagine, the 5-year-olds doing the virtual and whatnot. So I was lucky that I kind of missed that period, and they're in, full on with teacher classroom at 3, because, it can be really hard. And so I've often thought about parents and students and everyone going through all of that. Your students, it really sounds like they appreciate the level of respect that you give them. Is there anything we can learn from that?
It's interesting. So I was very serious when I said I learned from my students. So sarcasm is something that really like particularly lower level kids, it's just mean. And I'm like, I'm not sarcastic. And then I've started to pay attention to kind of what I say to my students when I have one-on-one conversations with them. And I'm like, oh my God, that was so sarcastic. So I think that you have to have relationships with kids in order to talk to them the way I do. But I think I make it clear when I'm like learning from them and when they say something that I hadn't thought of, like, wow. And I'm also apologetic when I make a mistake, because I don't know if they see that, like adults apologizing. So, yeah, I think that, I hope they respect me. I have very high standards. That can be very hard for kids.
Well, and I heard you demand excellence, but you help them get there. Is there kind of a key in that process?
Right. But I can imagine as an adolescent that, no one can impugn my teaching, right? They can't say nothing's going on in the classroom, which I hear, but they might not like the fact that I hold their feet to the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not an option in my classroom. You will learn. Your name will get on that board.
Mm-hmm. But perhaps it really helps them in the long term.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that if they don't appreciate me in the now, I think I get those emails in the later, where they're like, I got a letter from a kid in law school.
Wow.
I taught him in 10th grade honors. So I think, I don't know. I think teachers don't, I can only speak for me. I don't really think about how I affect people, right? My husband's always like, I'm a lowly English high school teacher in Indiana. He's like, Jocelyn, like you have affected so many lives.
Mm-hmm.
Your video, I was like, I could just cry. It was just incredible to have myself reflected back at myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Think about yourself in the course of 32 years, all the various lives and it really gives you chills to really, when you sit down and think about the influence that your teaching and caring can really have. I think sometimes we all forget that is the influence a teacher has. And like you said, you learn from them too, but.
Yeah, you have to really, I think you really have to have relationships with your students. That's really number one. You cannot do let me back that up. Because I teach upper level kids who really are extrinsically motivated by the grade, they would probably, whether they like their teacher or not, they're going to do. But if you don't have relationships with those kids as well as all other kids, you cannot do anything. They will not work for you. For a lot of our students, school does not matter. I'm really okay with my 13%. And without a relationship, you cannot move them forward. And my world is very different from their world. And worlds are so complicated, speaking about COVID, right? I had kids who couldn't get that assignment in Mississa. And, I had my younger brother and sister at home. They were what was late? Late didn't even exist last year. I'm whenever you can get it into me. But wow, kids' lives are so complicated, and poverty is not good for children.
No, yeah. And to have to weigh and be there for kids that are in such various different situations, I'm sure is a challenge. Any advice to parents, though? If you could tell parents something?
Well, I think I became a better parent because of teaching. And I think I became a better teacher because of parenting. Mm-hmm. Right. So I really don't get those blast phone calls anymore. Like the mother's just kind of yelling at me because I have a reputation now. But I realize when I get those phone calls that is someone's child. Right. And I now always begin those conversations with, I was a parent too. So many kids have mental issues and IEPs and 501s, and that so many kids have stress and anxiety. And so my own daughter struggled with that. So I can, I say that I'm back to school and I call me nicely, and just say, hey, Susan could not do her essay. She had a total panic attack. Like, those are real. Those are real excuses. Mm-hmm. And so I think parents need to communicate with teachers. The problem is when there's no parent and then there's no communication, right? So that's really the problem, that for many of our students, their parents are working 3 jobs. I mean, I remember calling a mother at 11 o'clock at night. She was on her 3rd shift, you know? Mm-hmm. So I don't think we realize how lucky we are to be able to be parents for our children. And I have to say, and I would say in the last 6 years, the parents I have called, who have called me, have been so reasonable and really understood who their kid was. Mm-hmm. And versus like, you know, well, I don't know, he's an A student. Why doesn't he have an A? And you're like, no, these are parents who get it and understand their kids and are they're having a conversation with me rather than you are the enemy and I know what's best. Mm-hmm. That still happens a little, but.
Well, I think it's wonderful to see a teacher with so many years as you have to really give us insight into the ever-changing world that it is in schools. I know for a lot of us, it becomes a foreign place. We haven't been in school in a long time. We haven't been a kid for a long time. So it's always interesting to hear from you and educators that are really in the midst of it. Is there anything else you really want people to learn or take away from your story and your success?
I think that schools are very important for kids. That defines their life. Even though I am a fierce advocate for public schools, I can understand why, if the school does not fit a child and parents have the means, they move their children elsewhere. However, I think that, you know, I would like to say we are, again, the last bastion of democracy. And to not support public education is to say goodbye to a foundational common good. Mm-hmm. And that those of us like myself who are privileged can forget when we travel in our bubbles and we send our kids to private schools that we are it for some of these kids. And unless we work to make it, you know, accessible and reasonable, and unless we take our job seriously as moral obligations, right, to our constituency, I think we do generations of children a real disservice. How's that?
On that note, a little bit, as we see the sub shortage and, you know, it seems like less teachers going into the field. Do you think that disservice comes from we're not making it the job as much as something that people would want to do as much as we could? I guess, do we pay enough? Do we make it appealing enough? Do we make it seem important enough? Or is it something where you're seeing new teachers not really coming into the industry, I guess?
Yeah, I know that's a real thing. So I'm not really speaking personally. I feel that North Central has been really good to me in terms of like allowing me to do other programs and giving me time out of class. I think that we have adjusted the pay scale, but teaching is like really hard. And so, you know, that's why I said I didn't really think about being a teacher. I mean, there are other ways to do. Unfortunately, I think if you do good work, you're not going to make the same pay as like a lawyer. And I don't mean to belittle those careers, but it's not a thankless task, right? I mean, it is a task that you get thanks for, but it's hard. Wow. As a first year, or like the first 5 years, class management, difficult kids. I think that's why we see teachers going to Fishers and Carmel, fewer teachers going to IPS or Pike or even Washington Township. So I don't think I really have a good answer for you, right? I mean, I think that what we're experiencing now is like another backlash, right? Like we want to take responsibility for education out of the hands of educators and put it in the hands of parents. Well, why am I going to like get a degree in education or a master's in education when parents are deciding? So I don't know. I think it's a very rewarding profession. I went into it because for me, I knew it would be intellectually engaging and emotionally engaging. So it has that going for it. But
it's meaningful work for you.
Yes, I think it is meaningful work. And if you want to, as you said, actually help form the next generation.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add that maybe I didn't ask you about?
No, I really want to thank you, though, for giving me this opportunity. I'm honored. And I would say, if you have any questions about teaching, give me a call. But teaching is definitely a worthwhile but difficult profession because, when you step into your newsroom or you step into the law office, you are immediately accorded respect. No one is going to be in your face. It's also the only profession when you can tell someone, no, they can't go to the bathroom. But so I would say, I think the difficulty is in classroom management and forming relationships, but those relationships can last a lifetime.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Bailey of Bailey & Wood Mortgage Lender. Our founder and my dad, Mike Wood, understands the importance of family, which is why with our fast turn times, you can focus on your family and enjoying your new home. Bailey & Wood has donated over $500,000 to local charities, schools, and our hometown heroes. When you use Bailey & Wood, you're partnering with a local family-run business that cares about your community.
Another huge congratulations to Mrs. Sisson. And remember, if you know a teacher deserving of recognition, tell us their story. We encourage students, parents, and colleagues to nominate teachers for their outstanding efforts in education. And we want them to win the Golden Apple Award. So get all the details and nominate someone right now on wishtv.com. Then be sure to watch Wish TV every month to see winning stories or subscribe to the Golden Apple Awards podcast here on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
The Wish TV Golden Apple Awards podcast, sponsored by Bailey & Wood Mortgage Lender. Nominate a teacher and learn more at wishtv.com now. Be sure to follow and subscribe to this podcast and discover even more great podcasts now on the All Indiana Podcast Network at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.